This program is rated PG. Parental guidance is advised.
Hello and welcome to Channel 8's History 101. I'm Carla Diendo.
And I'm My Joy Brown.
Today we'll be taking a look 83 years into the past to analyze World War II and its aftermath.
World War II was a global war that to this day remains the deadliest war in history. This war killed 50 to 85 million people. But let's take a look at how it all started.
World War II was considered to be inevitable because of the fact that pride within the people's nation-state to advance economical and political standing amongst European powers led to fascist expansionism.
Italy was led by Mussolini, Japan by Heidegger, and Germany by Hitler. Later during the war, they will formally become the Axis powers.
The Allies consisted of the U.S., who was under the power of Roosevelt and Truman, France by Gaulle, Great Britain by Churchill, and Russia by Stalin. They became the Allies.
The policy of appeasement at the beginning of the war is what really tipped the scale. This policy basically meant that everyone would give in to the demands of the aggressor in order to keep peace.
So basically Hitler was being allowed to do any and everything he wanted, as long as he didn't go to war. In March 1939, Hitler broke his promise, like everyone predicted.
Hitler also shocked everyone by joining Stalin and creating the Nazi-Soviet Pact, which joined them to have peaceful relations. Their first sign of teamwork was shown when they invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939. This pact was eventually broken by Hitler when he invaded the Soviet Union in a mission known as Operation Barbarossa.
Forgive me, comrade, but it seemed like such a good opportunity.
The invasion of Poland caused the countries of Britain and France to end the appeasement and declare war on Germany, marking the start of World War II. Extra, extra, read all about it!
Britain declares war! France ready to back Britain! After France was taken over pretty quickly by Italy, Hitler saw that Britain stood alone, and so he used Operation Sea Lion to invade Great Britain. He would later realize that this mission would not succeed.
Hitler would eventually be responsible for an event that had taken the lives of millions of thousands, known as the Holocaust.
In this event, Hitler had concentration camps and ghettos that gave people harsh living conditions and killed thousands daily, giving us an example of genocide. At the start of the war, the U.S. said they were going to stay neutral in the conflict, but because Britain was facing Hitler alone, they tried to provide help without going against their word, and therefore found a policy that allowed them to lend weapons to Britain.
The United States stopped goods from being sent to Japan. Japan took this as a threat to their economy, and on December 7, 1941, Japan dropped bombs on Pearl Harbor. This caused the U.S. to declare war on them, while their allies declared war on the U.S. In 1942, German bombers flew over Britain while the German army moved into the Soviet Union.
In order to defeat the Axis powers, the Allies committed themselves to total war by increasing political power, directing economic resources into war effort, and raising money by holding war bond drivers, where citizens lent the government money.
The turning point of the war occurred during the years 1942 through 1943, when the Allies won victories on 4 fronts to push the Axis tide back. These fronts included the Pacific, North Africa and Italy, Soviet Union, and France.
The Japanese lost their first battle at the Coral Sea, which lasted 5 days on May 1942, and then lost again in June at the Battle of Midway.
250 Japanese planes and 4 carriers were destroyed by the Americans.
Now in July 1943, Italian forces were also defeated by British and American forces.
This Italian defeat was an important event for the Allies because it weakened Hitler by forcing him to fight on another front.
Therefore, Hitler aimed for rich oil fields of the South, but only got as far as Stalingrad.
The Germans surrounded the city, but the Soviets encircled their attackers, which caused Germans to surrender in January 1943.
On June 6, 1944 was the D-Day assault.
The day Allies chose to invade France to open a second front.
Allied planes dropped paratroopers behind enemy lines and carried 156,000 Allied troopers across the English Channel. Troops made their way inland through the high wedges of Normandy, and British and American forces broke through German defenses into Paris.
Eventually, Germans retreated, and on August 25, the Allies entered Paris. In February 1945, at the Yalta Conference, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin agreed that the Soviet Union would enter the war against Japan within 3 months of Germany's surrender.
March 1945, Allies crossed the Rhine into western Germany, while from the east, Soviet troops closed in on Berlin.
American and Russian soldiers met at the Elbe River, and Axis armies began to surrender.
While Soviet troops fought their way into Berlin, Hitler committed suicide, and on May 7th, Germany surrendered.
The next day, May 8, 1945, became known as VE Day, also known as Victory in Europe Day.
After victory in Europe, the Allies moved on to defeating Japan.
By mid-1945, most of the Japanese Navy and Air Force had been destroyed, so scientists came up with the Manhattan Project.
This was a code-named project about atomic bombs being more powerful when splitting the atom.
They tested the first atomic bomb in New Mexico, and so President Truman warned Japan to surrender or face complete destruction.
The Japanese ignored the warning, and so the U.S. proceeded.
On August 6th, the U.S. plane dropped bomb over Hiroshima, killing more than 70,000 people, and on August 8th, the Soviet Union invaded Manchuria, and the next day the U.S. dropped a second bomb over Nagasaki, killing 40,000 people.
Emperor Hirohito surrendered on August 10th, and the peace treaty was signed on September 2nd, 1945.
On April 1945, delegates from 50 nations met in San Francisco to make a charter for the United Nations.
The United Nations prevented outbreak of disease, improved education to protect refugees, and helped nations to develop economically.
The U.S. and Soviet Union became the new world leaders. However, later on they were in conflict during the Cold War.
Well, this is it for today's episode of World War II.
Tune in tomorrow when we talk all about the Cold War.
See you then. We'll be taking a trip 85 years into the past.
It's 83, stupid. See it. Tune in.
A trip into the past. History 101. I'm Carla Dienda.
And I'm Marjorie Brown.
Stop!
Okay, why are you yelling?
Because killed from 40, 50 to 85 million people.
It was atrocious.
I'm Carla Dienda.
And I'm Marjorie Brown.
Today we'll be going back 83 years to learn all about World War II and its aftermath.
World War II was a global war that to this day remains
Put your hands